blog, thevirtuoushome.com, and today I thought I'd take you along for a Monday in my life as a homemaker and talk to you about my Monday homemaking routine. Monday is the day that quietly shapes the rest of my week. In this season, our weekends are often very full, and my home is in dire need of a woman's touch. It also needs a gentle reset rather than a hard push to get things done. Instead of rushing into deep cleaning or rigid plans, I've learned that a slower, more intentional Monday homemaking routine creates far more peace and momentum for the days that follow. I just published a blog post on my blog all about my Monday homemaking routine, where I get into more of the nitty-gritty of the things I try to do on a weekly basis that really set me up for success for the rest of the week. I'll leave a link in the description for those who are interested. One thing that has really helped not just Mondays, but any day goes smoother, is my new daily habit of really simplifying breakfast. Now, I love a good breakfast, but I rarely have the energy to put towards a good hearty breakfast meal at the beginning of a day. So what I've been doing recently almost every day is making overnight oats in the Instapot, and then I typically make a breakfast for dinner sometime during the week, since we still really love breakfast foods. If you've been around on my channel or on my blog, you know that I put a high priority on good quality food. So instead of using rolled oats or quick oats, I've switched to making oatmeal with whole oat groats. Starting with the whole grain kernel that has not been crushed or processed in any way is a lot more nutritious, and it also does not spike my blood sugar. I've even gotten into the habit of not having any other protein in the morning besides the oats, because oats have a decent amount of protein in themselves already, and I have not had a problem with my blood sugar spiking since I started doing this. So we eat oats pretty much every morning, and it's super easy for me because I start them the night before, and all I have to do is serve them up when it comes time for breakfast. One of my new winter traditions is using molasses. I love the deep and rich flavor of molasses. I'm the only one in my household that likes it, but that's okay. That means there's more for me. I typically put honey on everybody else's oats, but there's just something comforting to me and perhaps even nostalgic about using molasses, because it takes me back to my childhood when we would have it on hand every once in a while. It's been fun this winter to switch up my sweeteners, and it's brought me a bit of joy every morning to have some molasses in my oats. I love using a little bell to call my family to the table. It's a simple act that helps remind me every day to be gentle with my voice and not raise my voice at my children, even in the simple things like calling them to the table. I started homeschooling my oldest this past fall, and it's been a bit of an adjustment. But now that we are 3 to 4 months into the journey, I'm learning to love my life as a homeschool mom. I like to romanticize this part of my life and think of myself as becoming a school marm of a one-room schoolhouse. After homeschooling comes my favorite part of the day, to help myself find more joy in motherhood and not get dragged down by all the sacrifices that come with motherhood that leave me feeling empty. I've started prioritizing filling my cup first and doing any kind of housekeeping after lunch. So between homeschooling and lunchtime, I let myself do something that I want to do that doesn't necessarily have to be done, but that fills my soul and brings me a lot of joy. If you've been following my channel, you know that I've recently got into interior design and have been working on redesigning our house instead of just throwing decor up on the walls. I recently came across the idea of taking furniture that you already have but don't really like and bringing it back to a more raw wood look. So my joyful activity today is sanding down the top of this end table that goes in our bedroom. This is a really good piece for me to start on because, as you can see, the top was already starting to be really worn, so I wasn't worried about messing it up at all. This is a very orange wood, so I'm considering maybe even tan washing it so that it's not so warm toned. The inspiration for this came from a video from Andrea over on the Pine and Prospect YouTube channel, where she's talking about a dresser that she redid. I've honestly been watching way too much of her content, but I've just been so inspired by what she's done in her own home and how attainable she makes redecorating your house. I have learned a lot from her and really enjoy her homemaking content as well, and I'll leave a link to her YouTube channel in the description. I've been so intrigued by the idea of sanding down furniture as opposed to painting them, and I'm starting to be really drawn to the raw wood look that is very fitting for a farmhouse style home. Now that I've done the top of this dresser and shown it to my husband, who really loves the farmhouse style, I'm tempted to start sanding down every piece of furniture that we have. We've been so blessed in the area of furniture. When we were married, my adopted parents from the adopted student program in college gave us a bedroom set, which included this end table and 2 dressers. We've also been given bookshelves and have 4 end tables that are in our living room that were free as well. Our home also comes with built-in bookshelves in our living room that matched the very dark wood kitchen cabinets that I recently painted that you can see in my kitchen makeover and kitchen reveal videos. I also finally got a hutch for my dining room, and we have a table set that I got from Goodwill for $40 that I've been experimenting with to try to get the look I want. Last year, my sister came and helped me stain it, which I loved, but it's not very wipeable. You can definitely see where my children sit at the table because I've had to wipe those spots up a lot. I'm considering resanding it to give it a fresh look too. We love wood pieces, but we've accumulated a lot of orange and red woods, which don't really fit the style that we want in our home. So it's been exciting to learn about ways that you can take a furniture piece that you already have and completely change its appearance to a more toned down look, instead of just going out and buying a new piece. It's been so good for me to prioritize things that bring me joy, like learning more about interior design and bringing beauty into our space. When I intentionally fill my soul by doing activities that bring me joy like this, even though it's hard work, I've noticed that it really helps me a lot in other areas of my life, like mothering my children and doing the mundane housekeeping tasks that I'm not always so inclined to do. We love wood pieces, but we've accumulated a lot of orange and redwoods, which don't really fit the style that we want in our home. So it's been exciting to learn about ways that you can take a furniture piece that you already have and completely change its appearance to a more toned down look, instead of just going out and buying a new piece. It's been so good for me to prioritize things that bring me joy, like learning more about interior design and bringing beauty into our space. When I intentionally fill my soul by doing activities that bring me joy like this, even though it's hard work, I've noticed that it really helps me a lot in other areas of my life, like mothering my children and doing the mundane housekeeping tasks that I'm not always so inclined to do. It was a lot of fun sanding the end tabletop. It gives me a lot of hope that it's possible for us to live in a home that we find appealing and beautiful even on a budget. Now it's time to get some lunch going. I've got some sauerkraut and some leftovers that I'm going to pull together to make a meal. I had first pulled out some leftover soup and some leftover chili, but then I put the soup back because I realized that there was enough chili for me and the children. I'm not really fond of meal planning, and I can kind of get away with it by cooking a lot of extra food at dinner times and then using the leftovers to make something for lunch. It's actually quite easy to throw together a from-scratch lunch quickly every single day if you plan to have leftovers. Now I know some people don't care for leftovers, but I find leftovers to be a really good foundation for building a fresh meal on. Like this chili, for example. I added it to a pan with some tomato sauce and fresh cilantro and some boiled potatoes, and it turned into a Mexican soup situation. Now you'll probably never find this on the menu somewhere at a restaurant, but it was a yummy, warm, and nourishing meal for us, and it came together rather quickly. I love having sauerkraut on hand for when I make meals like this. Since this meal doesn't have a lot of vegetables in it, I can still quickly pull together a from-scratch lunch with some vegetables every day if I have some sauerkraut in my fridge. I'm still working on improving my sauerkraut recipe. It definitely has enough salt to ferment the cabbage, but it doesn't quite have enough, and I find myself adding more salt every time I serve it up. I think I might add another tablespoon or two next time I make a batch of sauerkraut. I'm just gonna add some salt and cumin here to our soup, and it should be ready to eat. I'm rather enjoying my journey of learning how to season things to taste and cooking from scratch instead of following a recipe that has everything listed out for me. The truth is that I can't follow a recipe to save my life anyways, and I find myself experimenting and wondering what if I add this or that, so I have pretty much resorted to trusting my instincts and learning to season to taste every meal I make. I had some fresh cilantro in the fridge that was starting to go bad, so I thought I would chop it up and throw it into this meal so that it wouldn't go to waste. And it was a very nice addition to our soup. Now I'm gonna serve it up and let it cool while I get my skillet cleaned. I love washing my skillet right after I use it, instead of letting it sit till the meal is over. I find that the skillet cleans up so much better while it's hot, and it preserves the non-stick surface on the skillet as well. Once I've rinsed it off with this brush, also I don't use soap on my skillets, just warm water, then I take my towels that are reserved for my skillets and I put a little oil on the skillet and I rub it in to also preserve that non-stick surface. I think it's been about 2 years since I fully transitioned to primarily using cast iron skillets for all my cooking. And I have to say that I am loving it, and I don't regret transitioning away from non-stick pans and other cookware. Cast iron just cooks well, and it cleans up well too. It's very easy to care for. After lunch is my housekeeping block of time. This is where I'll start laundry, clean up the kitchen, sweep the floors, do any big tidying up that I need to do for the day. I find that like any task, housekeeping will fill the time you give it. So if you try to do housekeeping all day long, you will be doing housekeeping all day long. But if you give yourself just a couple of hours, maybe just 1 or 2 somewhere in the day, then you'll only be doing 1 or 2 hours of housekeeping a day, and that's sufficient to maintaining an orderly house. And then you'll have time to do other things during the day, like playing with your kids, or extra tasks that don't necessarily need to be done on a daily basis. Or maybe have time to just go on a walk, or take your kids to the park. Now, since this is a Monday for me, part of my Monday routine is making bread, so I'm gonna get some sourdough going. I like to mill my own grains, not just for the health benefits, although there's plenty there, since you're starting with a very low processed ingredient and the nutrients in the wheat are fresh, but also just for the fun of it. Someday I want to look back on my life and see that I have cultivated the art of cooking at home well. I love working with fresh milled flour too, because it's not as sticky, and it's actually more pleasant to work with than pre-milled flour that you buy at the store. While my mill is milling the flour, I'm going to mix up some mop solution for my 4-year-old who loves to mop the floor. I love how helpful my oldest is getting to be, and since I use a non-toxic mop solution of vinegar and water and lavender oil, I'm not worried about letting him mop the floor by himself. If he or any of the other kids get it on their skin, it's not going to bother it at all. Part of my Monday routine is to prepare 2 large sourdough loaves of bread to use as sides to our meals throughout the week. It's been super helpful to bulk prepare bread this way, and it has saved me a lot of time in the kitchen, because I'm not making bread every day or every other day. Now I just make it once a week. It's also super easy to make several loaves at a time. You just mix up your ingredients and then do stretch and folds throughout the day whenever you think of it. Then when it starts to rise, I'll cover it and stick it in the fridge to long ferment until I'm ready to bake it. I'll probably bake 1 loaf tomorrow morning and another on Thursday or Friday. The recipe I'm making here is my new sourdough recipe that I've tweaked and is so much lighter and delicious even with fresh milled flour. Another change to my sourdough routine is using wet cloths to cover my dough instead of plastic wrap. It's just a cheaper option, and I like getting to switch out my towels seasonally too. It just adds another layer of beauty to my homemaking. Mondays used to stress me out as a homemaker, but I've found a routine that has really helped me in this season, and I feel like it's probably the complete opposite of the information that I found online about what other homemakers do on Mondays. I feel like a lot of homemakers find it helpful to do a lot of deep cleaning or knock out a lot of large tasks on Mondays. But I've honestly found that for me, and in this season of mothering with young kids and homeschooling, giving myself a soft start to the week, where I don't really do any housekeeping at all during the mornings, has really helped me not overdo it during the day and be completely exhausted by dinner time. Now I'll still fold laundry and make some bread and maybe do a few other meal prep stuff in the kitchen, but honestly, I just take the day as it comes and do just a few things that'll make a big impact on the rest of my week. and I try not to do any extra cleaning at all. About halfway through my day, somewhere after lunch, I do find myself starting to get a little overstimulated and worn thin. Something I've started doing in the last year or so is setting a timer for 5 minutes and sitting down and relaxing and meditating on some scripture or practicing some gratitude, because I find that a lot of my fatigue during the day actually comes from bad mindsets and negative thought patterns that I have. It's really amazing how much our thoughts affect our energy levels. When we have negative thoughts that we entertain and consistently go back to thinking about over and over again, we start to get stuck in negativity. And I know I can't explain it all, but I've learned that negative thought patterns can exhaust you, whereas positive thought patterns can actually energize you. So when I start to feel myself getting mentally or emotionally fatigued, I like to step aside, sit down, and rest for a few minutes, and just get my thoughts back on track before getting back into homemaking. It's amazing the difference that a positive attitude will have on my homemaking and on my kids' attitudes as well. Something else that has also really helped me in my homemaking is encouraging my children to help as much as possible. You may have noticed my kids taking their own bowls to the breakfast table, or mopping the floor, or taking their own clothes to their bedroom and putting them away. I think it's really easy as a stay-at-home mom to get bogged down with the amount of work we have to do. But if we can encourage even our young children to do even just a little bit, like taking their own clothes into their bedroom, or carrying their own bowls to the table, even these little things save us energy and time, and it all begins to add up throughout the day.
Take this with ice, take Bubba's, and come back for yours, okay? Thank you.
It's been about 30 minutes to an hour or so since I started my bread, so I'm going to oil my hands and play with my dough a bit. I like to oil my hands as opposed to flouring them, especially during the winter time, because it helps keep the dough from sticking to my hands, and when I go to wash them afterwards, it also keeps the water from stripping or drying out my hands. As a mom, I wash my hands all the time, all throughout the day, so I use every opportunity I get to keep them moisturized, especially during the winter months, so that they don't get chapped. So you can see my dough that's rested for just a little bit. It's just kind of scraggly looking, so I'm just going to knead it a few times. It won't really stretch right now because it hasn't sat long enough for the gluten to start forming. So that's why I like to say that I play with my dough, because I'll do a bit of kneading and then I'll stretch it a few times and fold it if it'll stretch. My kids really wanted to do a puzzle together, and since I got my housekeeping block of time done for the day, I had time to stop working and do a small puzzle with them without any regrets. It's only February here, but it's already starting to get warm, so I had to go and change out of my long sleeves into a short sleeve. And then we also had an Azure pickup today, which is not normal for Mondays. It's kind of scheduled very randomly, but it happened to be on a Monday today, so I'm going to do some stretch and folds with my dough before I leave the house. Then I'll pick up some more wheat berries and a few other things, and then I'll be back. I love how easy it is to work around bread making. I can leave the house if I need to, and I can do pretty much anything I need to around the house and still make all the bread we'll need for a week in a day. just got back from picking up our Azure order, where I like to order a lot of household items and dry goods in bulk. So I'm going to see if I can get this big bag of wheat berries into my little pantry cupboard, and then I'll show you what else I got. Now, our house does not have a pantry, but since I painted my whole kitchen recently, I got to reorganize everything, and so I've compacted most of all of our foods and dry goods into this one cupboard that kind of serves as my pantry, and it's been working really well to have everything together. Before I reorganized, I think I had pantry items in 3 or 4 different places of my home, which was not very well organized at all, so I'm loving this new organization. My Azure order varies from month to month, and sometimes I skip a month or 2 if I don't need anything. But typically, I buy wheat berries or other grains, and this month I needed some castile soap as well as some coconut milk. I really love the idea of shopping more in bulk, but honestly, it's been a very slow process getting the hang of how to actually practically do that without overspending. But with each step I take in buying more in bulk or stocking up on enough of 1 or 2 things for the whole month instead of buying them over and over again every week, like ketchup or pasta sauce or pasta noodles, it actually has really simplified my homemaking and eliminates a lot of extra decisions I was just making week after week. We also recently started getting raw milk quite consistently every week. I do buy pasteurized milk for the rest of the family, but I found out that I have a dairy intolerance, so I really like to prioritize high-quality dairy for myself, as well as for my 1-year-old, who's starting to drink a lot more milk. I think it just gives him a really good, healthy foundation for life to start him on high-quality food. So here I'm just skimming off the cream of the cow's milk that we get. I'll either use it to continue learning how to make homemade butter, or I'll use the cream for sauces or soups and such. Every once in a while, I might treat myself and use it as some creamer in a warm drink. Although it's starting to get warmer and I'm not drinking hot drinks as much anymore. Today, I was just really craving some chocolate milk, so I decided to mix up some cocoa and salt and a little bit of milk so that it gets mixed thoroughly before adding it to a cup of milk. I didn't really want any extra sugar, so I didn't add any sweetener. I am a dark chocolate girl though, so I really enjoyed the strong cocoa flavor, and the salt does cut the bitterness enough to make it taste good. While I drink my chocolate milk, I'm gonna get some potatoes in the Instapot to steam. This is a super easy side dish to make. All you do is rinse off your potatoes, add them to the Instapot with some water at the bottom, maybe like an inch or 2. Set your Instapot to 18 minutes and make sure the pressure valve is set to pressurize, and you'll basically have baked potatoes as the perfect side. I like to cook a couple of pounds of potatoes at a time, which is definitely way more than we'd eat at a meal. But having cooked potatoes on hand lays a good foundation for other meals, like you saw me use a little bit in the lunch today. But then also I'll top casseroles with them. I can use them to make quick mashed potatoes, I can make potato pancakes, potato salad, all kinds of things with this ingredient already cooked and in my fridge. Along with the potatoes, I'm gonna roast a whole chicken. This will give me plenty of meat for the week, but then also a good dinner tonight. It's really nice to have a homemade rotisserie chicken on hand to use in different meals. Because it was so warm out, I actually got spring fever today, and on a whim, I went out and started preparing my garden plot for the spring, while the potatoes cooked in the Instapot and the chicken roasted in the oven. I was able to do a good hour or so of gardening while supper was being prepared, practically all by itself in the kitchen. This is my favorite meal to make when I want to do large projects later on in the day, like when I painted the outside of our house, or if I wanted to do a lot of decluttering or a different large project inside. I worked in my garden plot until dark, and then all I had to do for supper was wash and cut up some peppers as a side to the chicken and potatoes, and we had a delicious from-scratch meal at the end of this very productive day. Thank you all for joining me for a day in my life as a homemaker. I hope you leave inspired and encouraged that Mondays can be whatever they need to be for you in this season of life that you're in. I did not plan to do so much today, but I love how the day unfolded, and I was actually able to do quite a bit more than if I had planned the whole day out. It honestly unfolded very organically, and it was very enjoyable. Now I do give myself some structure for my day, but for the most part, I do like to just let it unfold organically, because then I'm not thinking about tasks that need to happen later on during the day, and I find that I can be present with my children and still get a lot accomplished. Thank you all for watching this video and for spending this Monday with me. If you're new here, please be sure to subscribe.